We started with The Spy Who Loved Me, which is an entertaining romp, isn't it? And there is some thought that the James Bond franchise was a bit up against it at that particular moment, because the man with the golden gun, hadn't done as well. And there was quite a lot of money clearly thrown at The Spy Who Loved Me, and where you sit is where you stand, because you've got Jaws and all of that, and not a strong villain in Stromberg, Kurd Jurgens, of course, but of course Kurt in the anglicised or westernised titles, not really making the most of it. But we really enjoyed it, myself and Dave and my lovely wife Debbie, and of course Alan. Hello, Alan. And we then wanted to look at an overlooked Bond movie, and my thoughts immediately went to Licence to Kill, and I thought, I can't watch that again. It is a terrible Bond movie in my view, and got a Licence to Kill, and it has Bond in leisure wear. At one point, I think if I remember rightly, he's in a shell suit, or is that Anthony Zerb's character, or are they both in shell suits? It's not great, and Timothy Dalton as Bond deserved better than that. Why? Because this first, or the first of the two that he did as Bond, The Living Daylights, has been overlooked, and I think that's not right. Let me first start, after a sip of my tea, from a George Lazenby mug, best Bond ever on the mug. That's my belief, and I'll fight you on that one, because I know a lot of people don't agree. There were some issues. He wasn't the first choice, was he? I mean, I remember Finlay Light, the Australian actor, model, I think, a report in the paper about him being the new Bond, and very quickly that not being the case. There is a comment I've read recently on the internet, so it must be true, saying that he had been given a 10-picture deal or a 10-year deal, and that was very quickly not the case. I don't know. I really don't know. But there was all of this discussion. Sam Neill was in the picture. It was offered to Pierce Brosnan, who then said, in my understanding, but I'm contracted to Remington Steele, so I can't do it. Which, I mean, he became Bond, and his Bond movies were overlooked as well. And there's a reason for that. In fact, there are many reasons for that. More of that in a different podcast. But it seems he was... there was an eminently good reason for him to say, sorry, can't do that. This is how I became famous, and I'll continue with Remington Steele. So it was offered to Timothy Dalton. Now, I remember at the time, Timothy Dalton, great actor, and that was one of the things that was sold, how it was sold to people. He's a great actor, so he'll be able to do this. I remember him saying he wanted to go back to the austere, grim, difficult Bond of the novels. Not the kind of cruel and sadistic Bond, although there's some of that in here, but I do have a Licence to Kill, and consequently that will weigh strongly on me, and I will have to. That will be part of my character. But the new Bond and the search for Bond, plus the way people had reacted to the last Roger Moore movie, View to a Kill, which I think would have been a much better movie with a different Bond, because I love the differences they've made in that movie. More of that in a different podcast. All of that, I think, overshadows this movie. And I think it's not helped as well by the plot, because you've got two villains, haven't you? You do have Jerome Craver as General Georgy Koskov, who is a defector and double agent, and I mean he is, to use the common parlance, a shithouse from beginning to end, which is great, and he plays it beautifully. But you've got him, and then you have Brad Whitaker, played by Joe Don Baker, who confusingly will come back in in a movie down a Bond movie down the track as a good guy. Anyway, he plays Brad Whitaker, an arms dealer. So, is he the real villain? We do need these strong, direct lines, don't we? Are you the villain? Are you the villain? I don't quite know if you're the villain. We know that the henchman is Andreas Wisniewski as Necros. Really well done. Beautifully well done, actually. Particularly with him as the milkman, using the flex of a Walkman or other device of that nature to garrote people, and then delivering milk bottle bombs. Fantastic. Love that early on in the movie. And there are some lovely set pieces here. For instance, Jerome Crabber being put into the pipeline, the oil pipeline, to get him out of Russia. And those aforementioned milk bottle bombs. And there is a superb and quite scary, I mean, my stomach went again watching it, stunt with Bond and Necros falling out of the back of a cargo plane on a cargo net with all of the Red Cross parcels. That's really frightening. And somebody had to blooming well do that. I know they'll have parachutes on and all of that, but blimey. So there are some really, really good moments here. It's been overlooked because it looks a little cheap at times, I have to say. You've got, let's put them in here, let's take them to, let's have Art Malik here as Cameron Shah, part of the Mujahideen. Let's have him in there, and let's have them helping, and let's have some opium trade, and let's have diamonds for opium and opium for diamonds and weapons for... It's a bit confusing, to be honest. And then you've got a new Miss Moneypenny. You've got Caroline Bliss. Not ideal as Miss Moneypenny, to be honest. I'm not really that keen. So you've got new stuff here. And you've got a new Bond. And it's a real shame that this film is overlooked, because the work that Timothy Dalton does, both in making the relationship between he and Cara Milovi, Mariam Darbo, played by Mariam Darbo, work is great. The scenes that they do don't seem, I'm just a voracious sexual bloke, predator if you like, not predator, but bloke. Predator's the wrong word, but it's a different era, isn't it? And that kind of, okay, women are there because for my pleasure, and consequently theirs too. It's not like that here. They have a burgeoning relationship, and there are very few Bonds who have been asked to do that. Lazenby was one, handled it beautifully in my view, but then with a strong character played by Diana Rigg Tracy next to him. And also Daniel Craig has been asked to do that, which he did with a strength and a pout, which he likes to do. This is different. They are longer scenes. They are more, we get to see them together, having their burgeoning relationship, playing around. Dalton does it beautifully, and Mariam Darbo doesn't give him that much to work with. Not that I'm decrying Mariam Darbo's work, she does exactly what is necessary, but he does most of the work here. Plus, he has the look. Plus, I mean, he has the dark Bond looks, doesn't he? Which, I mean, when we saw Daniel Craig for the first time introduced to us, most people in the papers decried that blonde look, didn't they? He's blonde! How can Bond be blonde? All of that. So he has those dark looks. Plus, he just looks most of the time as if he has distasteful business to do. He's a great actor, Timothy Dalton. He's not putting this look on. He's playing this character in this way. It's distasteful what he has to do. A lot of it's on a wing and a prayer. And that is something he has to carry with him all the time. And in this movie, what you don't get which is the stuff that you got later on in the Craig movies, is it's really affected me psychologically, this. Physically and psychologically. You didn't get that in this movies. You started to get a little bit of that in the Pierce Brosnan movies, didn't you? But you didn't get an awful lot of that here. So, he plays that without any real help from the script. I mean, this film is directed with real jauntiness and bounce by John Glenn. He knows what he's doing, of course he does. And it's real fun. There are some lovely, cheeky moments here. I love the moment where they're in the cello box, getting through the checkpoint. Wave your passport and throw in the cello over the checkpoint barrier and catching it. It's lovely. And then using the spike as a rudder. Love all that. He produced something which was hard, and you could tell that he compartmentalised his life as Bond. That's something you don't often get. It's a great performance here. There is very little of that in Licence to Kill, which is just such a broad brush. They might have well used a canon. It's not a great movie, and at some point I will talk about that. But this movie is overlooked. It's a beautiful central performance from Timothy Dalton. You can see the way that he has to compartmentalise parts of his life because he's a killer. Most of what he does could end in death. He experiences death all the time. It's distasteful and it affects him. And then he's got a relationship which he seems to love. And that is also shown. He does it beautifully. Because he's an actor. Not that Daniel Craig and other Bonds aren't, or weren't, but this is done in a different way, with very little help from the script, which is basically saying, here's a very convoluted plot, here are a load of different locations, and here's some fun. And that's what you want with Bond, isn't it? It's left to Daniel Craig to do the rest. And I reckon it's one of the best Bond performances in any of those Bond movies. Bar none. Ta-ta.